The atmosphere in the office was palpable with tension as the clock ticked closer to the official start of Mr. Williams' reign. The usual morning greetings were replaced with hushed conversations, employees speculating about the changes that lay ahead. As Mr. Williams walked into the open-plan office, his polished shoes clicked against the cold tiles, each step echoing his newfound authority. He was a tall man, with graying hair and sharp features that gave away little of his intentions. The employees watched him warily, their uncertainty evident. Near the coffee machine, Sarah, a young marketing executive, whispered to her colleague, Tom. "Do you think he's really going to cut our salaries?" she asked, her eyes wide with apprehension. Tom shrugged, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "I've heard rumors," he replied cautiously, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "But we'll just have to wait and see." Mrs. Roberts, the deputy personnel officer, stood by the entrance, a stack of papers clutched tightly in her hand. She had been with the company for over a decade and had seen directors come and go. But something about Mr. Williams made her uneasy. "Good morning, Mrs. Roberts," Mr. Williams greeted, his voice smooth yet carrying a hint of underlying authority. "Good morning, Mr. Williams," she responded, forcing a smile. "I've prepared the list of proposed salary revisions for your review." He took the papers from her, scanning through them with a critical eye. "I hope you've made the necessary adjustments," he remarked coldly, handing the papers back. Mrs. Roberts nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, sir. I've tried to ensure it aligns with the company's budget." Mr. Williams smirked, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Excellent. Let's see how the team reacts, shall we?" The morning progressed, with employees slowly learning about the salary cuts. The murmurs grew louder, and the atmosphere grew heavier. Everyone was on edge, wondering what other changes Mr. Williams had in store for them. By lunchtime, the once bustling office was filled with a palpable sense of unease. The new era under Mr. Williams had begun, and its impact was already being felt by all. The days that followed Mr. Williams' arrival were a whirlwind of uncertainty. Employees discussed the looming changes in hushed tones, their apprehension growing with each passing day. Amidst this backdrop of unease, an unexpected event unfolded, reshaping the dynamics of the office. One crisp morning, as the office was just coming to life, Mr. Williams was in his office, going over some reports. From his window, he noticed a figure huddled near the building's entrance. Squinting against the sunlight, he recognized the silhouette of a woman, her tattered clothes and worn-out shoes telling a story of hardship. An idea sparked in Mr. Williams' mind. With a sly smile, he beckoned Mrs. Roberts over. "Look there," he said, pointing towards the woman outside. "What do you make of her?" Mrs. Roberts peered through the window, her brows furrowing in confusion. "I'm not sure, sir. What about her?" Mr. Williams leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "I bet you a week's salary that I can get her to work for us by the end of the day," he declared confidently. Mrs. Roberts looked taken aback. "Sir, with all due respect, we have a recruitment process. You can't just—" Mr. Williams cut her off, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Watch me," he said, rising from his chair. Exiting his office, Mr. Williams made his way towards the entrance, Mrs. Roberts trailing behind hesitantly. As they approached the woman, she looked up, her eyes wary yet defiant. "Good morning," Mr. Williams greeted, his tone falsely congenial. "I'm Mr. Williams, the new director of this company. I couldn't help but notice you outside. Are you looking for work?" The woman, taken aback by the direct approach, hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. "Excellent," Mr. Williams said, hiding his glee. "How would you like to work as a cleaner in our office?" The woman, Emma, seemed to consider the offer for a moment before agreeing, her eyes revealing a hint of resignation. Back in the office, as Emma was introduced to her new role, whispers spread like wildfire. Sarah approached Mrs. Roberts, curiosity evident in her eyes. "Who is she?" she whispered, nodding towards Emma. Mrs. Roberts sighed, shaking her head. I have no idea, but something tells me she's not just an ordinary cleaner. Little did they know, Emma's presence would soon challenge their perceptions in ways they could never have imagined. The days following Emma's induction into the office were marked by a blend of awe, curiosity, and subtle disdain. While many were intrigued by the mysterious woman with an air of dignity, others viewed her with skepticism, questioning her ability to maintain the office's cleanliness. Yet with each passing day, Emma's dedication and meticulousness began to reshape opinions. She moved through the office with a quiet grace, her focus unwavering, ensuring every corner was pristine. The once overlooked details, from smudged windows to dusty shelves, now gleamed under her careful attention. During lunch breaks, Emma would sit alone, her eyes often drifting towards the window, lost in thought. It was during one such afternoon that Sarah mustered the courage to approach her. "Mind if I join you?" Sarah asked tentatively, holding her lunch tray. Emma looked up, her eyes reflecting surprise, then nodded, offering a small smile. "I've been meaning to talk to you," Sarah began, fidgeting slightly. "You've been doing an incredible job here. It's just surprising, given how things started." Emma's smile widened, her hands moving gracefully as she signed her response. "Thank you. Everyone has been kind, mostly. It's just about seeing the world differently." Sarah watched in awe as Emma's fingers danced, conveying her sentiments with such clarity. "I can't even begin to imagine how challenging it must be," she admitted. "Yet you handle it with such grace." As the days turned into weeks, whispers of admiration began to replace the earlier skepticism. Tom, who had initially scoffed at the idea of a homeless woman cleaning the office, found himself engaged in a deep conversation with Emma one evening. "You know," he began hesitantly, "I was one of those who doubted at first. But seeing you here every day, giving your all, it's made me realize we all have our battles." Emma nodded, her eyes reflecting understanding. "Life has its ways of testing us," she signed, "but it's up to us to decide how we respond." The office, once divided in its opinions, began to unite in its respect for Emma. Her silent determination and resilience became a source of inspiration, reminding everyone of the strength that lies within each of us, waiting to be discovered. The office began to adapt to Emma's presence, her quiet determination serving as a daily reminder of perseverance and dedication. Yet behind her serene exterior, Emma carried a world of memories and a story untold. Late one evening, as the office lights dimmed and most employees had left, Emma sat at her desk, her fingers gliding over a series of documents. The rhythmic tapping of her pen against the paper was the only sound in the silent office. Mrs. Roberts, working late herself, noticed Emma's diligence and approached her desk. "You're always here late, Emma," she remarked, concern evident in her voice. "Is everything okay?" Emma looked up, offering the soft smile. "I just want to do my best," she signed, her hands moving gracefully. Mrs. Roberts took a seat opposite her, her gaze searching Emma's face. "You know, Emma," she began hesitantly, "I've been meaning to ask about your past. There's so much strength in you, yet you seem to carry a weight." Emma's expression softened, her eyes reflecting a myriad of emotions. "It's a long story," she signed, taking a deep breath, one filled with love, loss, and resilience. Feeling a connection, Mrs. Roberts reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Emma's. "Whenever you're ready to share, I'm here to listen." Over the next few weeks, a bond formed between the two women. One evening, as they sat in the office break room, Mrs. Roberts broached the topic again. "Emma, if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear your story. Only if you want to share, of course." Emma hesitated for a moment, then began to sign, her movements painting a vivid picture. She spoke of her childhood, filled with laughter and dreams, her passion for economics, and the tragic accident that changed her life forever. Tears glistened in her eyes as she spoke of Kevin, her love, and the life they had planned together. Mrs. Roberts listened intently, offering words of comfort when needed, her own eyes moist with empathy. As Emma's story unfolded, it became clear why she possessed such strength and resilience. By the end of the evening, a weight seemed to lift off Emma's shoulders. "Thank you," she signed, her voice choked with emotion. "For listening, for understanding." Mrs. Roberts squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for trusting me with your story. You're an incredible woman, Emma, and I'm honored to know you." The echoes of Emma's past, once silent, now served as a testament to her strength, reminding everyone that beneath the surface of every individual lies a story waiting to be heard. The office, with its newly fostered camaraderie and mutual respect for Emma, seemed to be on an upward trajectory. The buzz of productivity and collaboration filled the air, and for a brief moment, the challenges of the past seemed distant. However, a silent observer had taken keen interest in these developments. Mr. Brown, the company owner, had received wind of the office's transformation under Emma's stewardship. While the positive changes were heartening, Mr. Brown believed in seeing things for himself. With a discreet nod to the IT department, a series of hidden surveillance cameras were strategically installed, capturing every corner of the office. In the confines of his lavish office, Mr. Brown sat watching the live feed on his computer screen. The usual hustle and bustle of the office played out before him. But his attention was firmly fixed on Emma, diligently working late into the night. A soft knock on the door interrupted his observations. "Come in," he called out, not taking his eyes off the screen. Mrs. Roberts entered, a hint of concern evident on her face. "You wanted to see me, sir." Mr. Brown motioned for her to take a seat. "Yes, Mrs. Roberts. Please, sit." He gestured towards the screen. "I've been observing the changes in the office, particularly under Emma's leadership. She seems to be making quite an impact." Mrs. Roberts nodded. "She's truly remarkable, sir. The team has rallied behind her, and the results speak for themselves." Mr. Brown leaned back in his chair, studying Mrs. Roberts carefully. "I've also heard rumors about her past, her qualifications, and the challenges she's faced. It's a compelling story." Mrs. Roberts sighed. "It is, sir. But it's also made her the strong, capable leader she is today." A moment of silence hung between them before Mr. Brown spoke again. "I've installed these cameras not just to monitor, but to understand. I wanted to witness firsthand the dynamics at play." Mrs. Roberts looked taken aback. "Sir, while I understand your intentions, isn't this a breach of privacy?" Mr. Brown met her gaze squarely. "It was a necessary step, and from what I've seen, it's clear Emma is the right person to lead this branch." As Mrs. Roberts left Mr. Brown's office, a mix of emotions swirled within her. While she disagreed with his methods, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Emma's leadership had indeed transformed the office, and it was only a matter of time before the rest of the world took notice. The days following Mr. Brown's surveillance felt longer, the tension palpable. The employees went about their tasks with a sense of unease, unaware of the hidden eyes that had observed their every move. As the week wore on, a meeting was called, summoning all employees to the conference room. As the staff settled into their seats, whispers filled the room. Speculations ran wild. Was there a new project? Were there more changes afoot? Mr. Brown took center stage, his commanding presence silencing the room. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice measured. "I called this meeting because there are certain matters that need addressing." The room grew silent, the anticipation palpable. "I have been closely monitoring the office," Mr. Brown continued, not out of distrust, but out of curiosity. Curiosity to see the changes firsthand, to understand the dynamics at play. Murmurs filled the room, employees exchanging puzzled glances. Mr. Brown turned his attention to Emma, who sat calmly, her expression unreadable. "Emma," he began, "your leadership and dedication have not gone unnoticed. But there are aspects of your story that deserve to be shared, not whispered about in hushed tones." Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. She knew this moment would come, yet she felt a surge of vulnerability. Mr. Brown gestured for her to speak. "Please, share your story, your truth." Taking a moment to compose herself, Emma began. She spoke of her dreams, her passion for economics, the tragic accident that took away her hearing, and the challenges she faced thereafter. Her words were heartfelt, each sentence painting a vivid picture of her journey. As Emma's story unfolded, a wave of emotion swept through the room. Some listened with tears in their eyes, others with jaws clenched, processing the depth of her resilience. Mrs. Roberts, visibly moved, spoke up. "Emma, I've had the privilege of getting to know you, of understanding the strength that lies within you. But hearing your story, in your own words, it's truly inspiring." Emma smiled, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, Mrs. Roberts." Mr. Brown cleared his throat, drawing the room's attention once more. "Emma, your qualifications, your dedication, and your resilience make you an invaluable asset to this company. Effective immediately, I am appointing you as the new branch director." A round of applause echoed through the room, the staff rising to their feet in a gesture of respect and admiration. As the meeting adjourned, employees approached Emma, offering words of support and encouragement. The truth had been unveiled, and in its wake emerged a renewed sense of unity and purpose. The morning sun streamed through the office windows, casting a golden hue on the desks and illuminating the newly appointed director's office. Emma sat at her desk, a sense of purpose emanating from her. The walls, once bare, were now adorned with charts, plans, and a whiteboard filled with strategies. The office was abuzz with a newfound energy. Employees worked with renewed vigor, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. The transformation was palpable, and at its epicenter was Emma, guiding, mentoring, and leading by example. Mrs. Roberts entered Emma's office, a bouquet of flowers in hand. "Congratulations, Director," she said, handing over the flowers. "A small token to mark the beginning of this new chapter." Emma smiled, taking the flowers and placing them on her desk. "Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Your support has meant a lot to me." The two women shared a moment, reflecting on the journey that had led them to this point. As the day progressed, Tom approached Emma's office, a hesitant knock preceding his entrance. "Director," he began, a hint of nervousness in his voice, "I wanted to apologize for my earlier skepticism. You've proven us all wrong." Emma nodded, motioning for him to take a seat. "Thank you, Tom. But remember, we're a team. It's through collaboration and understanding that we'll achieve our goals." Tom smiled, a weight lifted off his shoulders. "I look forward to working under your leadership, Director." As the day drew to a close, Emma took a moment to reflect. The challenges, the doubts, the moments of vulnerability, they had all shaped her journey, leading her to this point. She realized that while the title had changed, her core remained unchanged. She was still the determined, resilient woman who had faced adversity head-on. Outside her office window, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow on the horizon. It was symbolic of the new dawn that awaited the branch, a future filled with possibilities, growth, and success. The chapter had closed on the past, and a new one had begun. Under Emma's leadership, the office was not just a place of work, but a community, united in its pursuit of excellence.